Hello everyone, my name is Lemba Songklangi from BA third semester Psychology Group 2. Today I'm going to present a longitudinal research and cross-sectional research method under lifespan development. Uh, let's uh, let's go through longitudinal research first. What is a longitudinal research? A longitudinal research or study is a type of correlational research that involves looking at variables over an extended period of time. So it means studying the subjects or observing the subjects in details for a period of time. So that time can be extended from relatively short to a very long time. There are some characteristics under this research. Under a longitudinal research, a single group is studied at a period of relatively short or a very long time thoroughly. Mm, Participants are studied repeatedly at different ages. Changes are noted as they get older. Different participants of similar age are kept in one group and are observed by the researchers or investigators. Of how the changes occurs in their development. Researchers not only studied their subject once, mm, that means their participants, but repeatedly over uh, maybe years or decades. The studies also provide a wealth of information about vital issues in the development. Mm, It can also be said when researchers are looking over a long period of time, and during that time they collect a data or evidence over that time to see if they can find some sort of patterns or links to an individual's behavior over the time. As it takes enough time or the time can be extended, uh, the researchers are able to get an in-depth knowledge of the importance of early experience for later development. Mm, when we say vital issues, it means their stability or changes or growth in details, and the in-depth knowledge of the importance of early experience. Their early experience plays a very important role to influence their later development. That is referring to uh, their adulthoods or their aging process. And moving on to the next slide. Longitudinal studies have strength that are important advantages to conduct the research. So here are the two major strengths. Researchers are able to identify common patterns as well as individual differences, because there is a lot of time to be able to notice and identify what changes and at which that changes occurs. And researchers are also able to examine an in-depth knowledge of how early experience influence later development, as we already know that the early experience of a person's is very important for the later development. And there are also drawbacks. Longitudinal studies have also weaknesses or drawbacks that are challenges that need to be considered. So number one, bias sampling, the failure to enlist participants who represent the population of the interest. In this case, if the participants who represent the population to be observed might have distinctive characteristics which the researchers can find problem to generalize from them to the rest of the population, because they are different from those most of the population. So it can cause a problem. And number two, selective attrition, tendency for some participants in the experiment to be more likely to drop out from others. Here, if the participants might drop out for a number of reasons. They can simply losing the motivation to participate in the research. Mm, and cohort effects. When we say cohort, it is an age group of different of developing at the same time period that is influenced by a particular condition. So cohort effects is a cultural historical change. One cohort might be different from another cohort. So that result based on the one cohort may not be able to apply on another cohort. And the last one is changes occurring in the field of child problems for longitudinal research covering an extended time period. So in the field of the child, the changes can cause a problem for the research because the time of the studies can only be for a short time when the time requires for the research when the mm, information becomes outdated. So in the field of the child, the information of the changes can become outdated, which may be difficult for the researchers to continue their work. And again, moving on to the next slide. Longitudinal studies are useful for um, measuring life chances between different groups, um, viewing how large social events affect cohorts as a generations, observing how groups evolve over time. In this study, the studies can be used to see whether different groups have different life chances, or to view how those events can affect cohorts in changing, and how the people mm, evolves over time. Um, and moving on to the topic of cross-sectional research method. What is cross-sectional research method? Mm, A cross-sectional research or study involves looking at data from a group of people at one specific point in one time. This means at one time, researchers research and observe the subjects. Mm, when we say the subjects, different groups of people with different age, mm, they are observed at one time, at only one time, not repeated like longitudinal research. There are also some characteristics under the topic. Um, the studies happens on a short period of time. Different age groups are studied at the same point in one time. So it is when the researchers collect a data at a specific defined time, they get a snapshot in time of the data, their data. Mm, and researchers when the researchers they investigate the information among the group of people, but uh, not manipulating variables. Mm, and groups can be compared with respect to variety of different dependent variables. Participants are selected based on their particular variables of interest, such as dependent on their IQ and memory and other things. And there are also some advantages. The cross-sectional research method takes a little time to conduct and relatively inexpensive, as it requires only a few times researchers can collect often information um, quickly, and that the benefits are very useful for them. And the design is an efficient strategy for describing age-related trends. And researchers need not to be concerned about such difficulties in the field that might make the findings obsolete by the time the study is complete, as it is measured only once. Mm, as it is measured only once, the researchers does not need to worry mm, for the unuseful information they find when the study is complete. So those are unnecessary, but they did not cause a problem. Uh, The data can also be used for various types of research. And moving on to the disadvantages. Uh, Under the cross-sectional research method, no evidence about development at the level at which it actually occurs. It is there can be unimportant to have evidence of when the changes occurs, but because of this research method requires only short time, it is hardly able to identify the exact time when changes occurs, and generalizability is limited. They did not extend as they did not extend the time because of comparison at one age group with another age group, and threatened by cohort effects likely longitudinal research. There is also a cohort effects that may not really represent age-related trends. Mm, It is not only age-related trends, it is a change due to the influence of the external environment. Mm, So these are the things we have to know under the topic of cross-sectional research method. For the last part, to conclude, mm, I have collected examples of both the topics longitudinal research and cross-sectional research in another category, mm, in hoping of better understand. Under a longitudinal research, researchers collect data on the number and size of glaciers on the mainland of Greenland from the year 1900 to 2000. Here, they took over a decades, right? They took over a long period of time. The time is extended for a period of decades. But in under cross-sectional research, researchers determined the number of glaciers on the mainland of Greenland in August 2000. They took only a month, which is a very short, unlike a longitudinal research. So these are the difference between the longitudinal research and cross-sectional research method. I hope you can understand the examples as well as explanations. So that's all I can present for today. Thank you.